good. Okay, I'll call to order the regular meeting for June 25th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission statement is Learning for Life. A vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. So the next item is the agenda, but before we take a motion on that, I'm just going to explain. We've got kind of an expanded consent agenda. So if anybody wants to remove an item from consent, you don't need support for that. You just ask for it to be removed. It doesn't have to be done now. We can do it when we get to consent, but it doesn't need support, doesn't need a vote. We just remove it, and then we'll treat it like a regular action item. So in case we had any questions about it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Support. Supported by Mr. Sage. Any discussions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. First thing we have is presentations, and number one is recognition of the DECA state qualifiers.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hansen's coming up to announce we had several state qualifiers this year for DECA, and he's going to talk a little bit about what DECA is. It is something we have done for the very first time this year, and as we build in, we know that this recognition is coming after the end of the school year, and we'll definitely make sure that's included a little earlier during the year as we make this a regular practice.
Yes, so as Mr. Irvine said, DECA is kind of rebooting for Southgate schools. It's COVID kind of had it. It's time to take it away, but it is definitely time to bring it back and recognize the students that have done an excellent job. So every year, DECA hosts competitive events between high schoolers across the region and the state that build and strengthen student skills in the areas of marketing, finance, entrepreneurship, personal finance, hospitality, and management. This spark of competition drives DECA members to excel and improve their performance in an event that either requires students to think on their feet and solve real-world problems, or an event that requires diligent preparation to give a knockout presentation in front of judges that are professionals in these fields. This year we had 5 state qualifiers. The students attend the statewide event that was hosted in Detroit. We could not be more proud of your efforts and accomplishments. When I call your name, please come up and accept your plaque. And there are some people that are not here, but I'm still going to recognize them for their efforts because I think they deserve it. So first off, we have someone that is here, Tiffany Barco. Tiffany was a 2024 DECA State qualifier in hotel and lodging management. Who's taking the pic? I'm taking the pic.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Sean Bono is not here. Unfortunately, he was on vacation. But he was a qualifier in the professional selling events. Alexis Hall's 2024 DECA State qualifier in travel and tourism team decision making. Mia Liangos is the 2024 DECA State qualifier in travel and tourism team decision making as well. And Brooklyn Sage is the 2024 DECA State qualifier for Principles of Business Management and Administration.
Congratulations.
both of these ladies were juniors this year, so hopefully next year they will have a repeated performance. So, congratulations, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now not as exciting, but equally as important, we have our budget hearing.
Yeah, you have my HDMI.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight I am presenting the 2024-2025 proposed original budgets. And the general operating budget overview message is as follows. This budget document reflects the revenues and expenditures associated with the continued operations of the outstanding programs of the Southgate Community School District. In the 2024-2025 general operating budget is based on the following assumptions. Our 2024 millage rate requests are as follows. The local tax revenue is based on the full 18 mill levy authorized by law on taxable non-principal residence property, except commercial personal property, which is levied at 6 mills. The local tax revenue accounts for 79% of total local revenue. Also, the operating millage remains the same at 18 mills. There is no Headley rollback, and a mill is equal to $1 of tax for every $1,000 of taxable value. This is an approximate increase of $252,000 in local tax revenue based on the increased property tax values of non-principal residence properties at 18 mills. The total operating levy is expected to raise $6,006,612. The recommended debt millage of 5.85 mils has no change from the 2023 debt millage, and it was analyzed by PFM Financial Advisors. This 5.85 mil debt service levy is expected to generate $5,146,815 to pay the annual principal and interest on voter-approved bond issues. Oops. We also have a 1.8859 mills levied for the sinking fund this July, and this is a rollback on the original voter-approved 1.9 mills. This will generate approximately $1,784,096. Other revenue assumptions are the garish lease to Beacon for 6 additional months is included. The state aid foundation allowance with special education reimbursement is projected to increase 4% from $9,608 per pupil to $9,992 per pupil. And this is an increase of $384 per student. The fall 2024 enrollment is projected to increase by 100 pupils. Reimbursement of FY24 special education costs will be at 100%, and the ESSER 3 revenue is removed. The expenditure assumptions are that the hard cap, which is Public Act 152, will increase by 0.2%, very minimal. There is no decrease to retirement rates at this time. And there are 7 additional teachers added, 3 at North Point, 3 at Anderson, and 1 at Davidson. We have a half-time science instructional coach added, a district PBIS coordinator, a direct hire of an athletic trainer, staff retirements and reimbursements, addition of a student dean position at Anderson, removal of a .5 athletic coordinator, and our shared expenses and revenues expect to net $500,000 to Southgate Community Schools. In summary, the projected general fund balance as a percentage of prior year's expenditures is 27.10%, and our board policy 5002 requires we will endeavor to maintain a year-end general fund balance of 10% of the preceding year's expenditures. By the state's early warning calculation, it is 39.4%. And to note, there is a reduction of approximately $500,000 from the FY24 fund balance estimation from the March amendment. The unknowns at this time, the foundation allowance per pupil is not yet determined, and the state is required to complete their budget by July 1. The fall 2024 pupil count is an estimate at this time. There are 135 student increase at Anderson, 50 student increase at North Point, and a 50 student increase in shared services. Retirement rate is unknown at this time. There's a possible decrease of up to 7% in personnel expenses. And the additional staffing needs for special education staff increases in enrollment would also possibly increase staff. And our final business office configuration is unknown at this time. So the general fund summary is that the estimated ending fund balance at June 30 of 24 is a proposed amended budget of $15,229,640. The estimated ending balance at June 30 of 25 per the proposed original budget is $16,416,170. This is a net increase in fund balance projected at 6/30 of 25 of $1,186,530. Total revenue, $61,649,361, and total expenditures, $60,462,831. Projected general fund balance percentage of prior year's expenditures, as I mentioned earlier, is 27.10%. This screen basically just tells you what the changes are in the revenue from FY24 to FY25. And you can see the total revenue is $65,969,627 at the end of FY '24, and in the original budget, it expected to be $61,649,361, which is a decrease of $4,320,266. This is just a graph of where our revenue sources are coming from. You can see 78% comes from state revenue, 12% from local, which includes your tax dollars, things like rental income, federal 5%, and other items are 5%. Those are like the enhancement millage is in that area. I've listed by function all the changes in the general fund expenditure from year over year. And in total, for FY '24 in the amended budget, we were looking at $60,575,452 in total expenses. And for the proposed original budget at the end of '25, we're looking at $60,462,831. And that difference is much smaller. It is a $112,621 decrease. There's another graph showing on the expenditure side where all of these expenditures are grouped by function. And the largest piece of pie is, of course, basic instruction at 57%. All right, so moving on to the food service fund. This graph shows, or this slide shows the proposed budget at 6/30 of '24 in revenue. And we have local sources of $334,680, state sources of $238,757, and the bulk in federal sources of $1,723,589 for a total revenue of $2,297,026. And then for the proposed original budget for '24-25, local sources of $334,600, state sources of $45,000, and federal sources of $1,697,000 for a total of $2,076,600. And that is a decrease of $220,426. And then in the food service fund expenditures, I've listed these out by category. Your salaries, benefits, purchase services, food, supplies, and other, and also payments to other districts, and then our outgoing transfers. So our total expenditures projected for the amended budget is $2,288,660. And for '24-25, the proposed original budget is $2,459,434, excuse me, which is an increase of $170,774. In the food service summary, we are projecting that the fund balance at June 30 of '24 will be $832,717. And the projected fund balance at June 30 of '25 is $449,883. This includes a $104,836 transfer to the general fund for indirect costs, which is calculated at the preliminary '24-25 rate of 11.28%. We don't have final rates yet. We will continue with the Creative Montessori agreement. The state of Michigan required us to do a spend down plan, which is why we have increased expenses in '25. And just to note, all students eat free. Then our community services fund revenue. These are the changes on this slide. The items that are included in this community services fund are latchkey, preschool, enrichment, and 2 new programs, the Gators and the Ed Camps, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So, local sources here for the proposed amended budget revenue are $539,705. State sources, $112,055 for total revenue of $651,760. And the proposed original budget for 24-25 revenue, local sources $510,500 and state sources of $94,000 for total $604,500. This is a decrease of $47,260 in revenue. Then in their fund expenditures, as I said, this includes the latchkey, preschool, adult enrichment, Gators, and the Ed Camps. Our total proposed amended budget expenditures are $597,001. And the proposed original 24-25 budget expenditures are $597,435, which is actually an increase in expenditures of $434. The summary of changes to this community services fund are that we have added the 2 new local revenue sources that I mentioned, the Gators and Ed Camps. So as well, there are additional expenses related to those 2 programs. The preschool revenue, Southgate operates 2 tuition-based rooms. There's a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old room. The state one-time funding for Tiny Titans pre-licensure grant is not existing in 24-25. The added child care program coordinator was also added in actually last year. So that's a new, over these 2 years, that position is included. And then the fund balance at June 30 of 24 is projected to be $168,920. And the fund balance at June 30, 2025 is projected to be $175,985. And lastly, our student school activity fund. Our proposed amended budget here at June 30, local sources is $323,201. Our expenditures are $407,468, leaving us with a fund balance at June 30 of $370,015. Projected in the original budget for 24-25, our revenue will be about $300,000, and our expenditures will be $400,000 with an excess fund, or excuse me, with a fund balance of $270,015. So in this fund, this is the former trust and student activity accounts that were changed by GASB 84 that we mentioned many, many years. These were former custodial funds, and they must be moved into the special revenue fund, which is general fund or governmental funds. So we do that here at the end of the year for ease of the departments to follow their fund balances and all. So they continue to look at their accounts the way they always looked at them, and then we just do book entry and move everything. The guidance indicates that we may show only total revenue and total expenditures. We don't have to go into that line item function detail that we do in the general fund. Within this fund, there are many rules: no food, no flowers, no donations, gifts, scholarships, or other unlawful expenditures by a governmental unit that are allowed to be charged to this fund. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Oh, way over there. I'm sorry. Okay. And just a point as to why expenditures increase, fund balancing decrease. We've had several former student activities accounts that have removed their funds from our Southgate books, and they're now operating independently of the district. So, in 24, 25, I am expecting to see more of those leaving because they're in the process of getting their paperwork done. So, and that's it. Any questions or comments?
Dr. Pomponia.
On the expenditure assumptions, the addition of student dean position, is that something new, or do we have any other deans? What is that, what area is that in?
Yeah, that's at the high school. So that was a discussion about how we allow any of our, well, at least one of our administrators to focus almost exclusively on athletics. That allowed us
right,
to
okay.
reduce the FTE for athletic coordinator.
Okay. And then also .5 athletic coordinator, is that just time for
That's
someone
just
who-
time, that was the
Okay.
halftime schedule that person held.
And then the other thing is, do we know how long students are going to be eating free for the entire district? Is that something that's foreseeable in the near future, or is that something that has a time?
I have not personally heard anything, but our food service director is sitting in the audience.
Okay.
And perhaps he has.
Yes, this is an ongoing program that we expect to have many years ahead of us.
We're CEP, so we're good for at least 4 years.
Oh, good.
4 years.
Okay.
Here, we apply, kick the can down the road for another 4 years.
Oh, good.
We'll
Okay.
Continue to do that year after.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Can you give me an example of the student activities accounts that are now operating independently? What are
Many, and in fact, most of them, probably 99.9%, were class of. So like each year, a graduating class sets up, fundraiser account for them to be able to hold reunions or whatever they want to do with their money. And we had a few that left their money on our books and then went away. And we cannot keep that money. It's either got to be sheeted up to the state or they need to take possession of their money. So we've encouraged them, and I know our principal here, Tara Randall, has been encouraging them to fill out the paperwork, and we've gotten several. And they had some large balances, so, there's a reduction coming from this special services fund, the last grouping that I read. So, but
what were the sources of those funds?
that was all their own fundraising.
Of
I
some
mean,
of the
the
independent
kids,
fundraising that was going on?
yes, absolutely, they did all, that's why I felt so strongly, I don't want to send this to the state, because it's their money and they would really have a hard time getting it out.
Okay, I thought that's what it was, I just wanted to make sure. And then, why was it rolled back? I mean, it's minute, but on page 2, slide 2, I think it is, yes. The millage rollback from 1.9 to 1.88 plus.
Yeah.
What is that just a amortization game or what?
No, it's, the Wayne County Treasurer's Office does their projections, and it has to do with whether the market is growing faster than they anticipated, and so they roll back the tax dollars. So we originally got a voter approval of 1.90 mils, and this current year's calculation is now 1.885
To achieve the same end, right? To achieve the same revenue for us. Is that correct?
Right, well, the good thing, even though there's a rollback, we're getting more revenue than we initially had anticipated due to the property
Property
tax
tax.
values.
All right, thank you.
I just got one.
Sage.
So under other revenue assumptions, we say that we're expected to increase by 100 pupils.
Yes.
But then if I look at the unknowns at this time, it looks like we could potentially go up to 235. So
Yeah,
we could have
there's-
an additional 135.
Right, so we're conservatively booking or planning for 100, but we already have evidence that we have significantly more than 100. But we haven't budgeted for that yet. At this point, we'll wait until the fall and see who shows. We always want to be careful about assuming that everybody who's here with us now are going to be with us again in the fall. So there's always that as an offset.
Thank you.
Under the, it's our page 6, but it's the general, changes in the general fund expenditures. Pupil services is increasing. It looks like almost 10%. what's driving that pupil services 10%?
Okay, I'm sorry, you're on the page that says changes in general fund.
Changes in general fund expenditures.
Okay, I got it. And I'm sorry, do you mind?
Pupil services, the third one down.
Oh, the pupil services. Yeah, I kind of took a look at that, and we have an increase in social workers, counselors, across the board. I was trying to see where exactly they came from, but it would be in the student service area, an increase going on, and I would believe it would be based a large part on the special services students that they get with IEPs. They have to have the right staffing
Yeah.
to, cover their IEP.
We've had an increase in, when considering that we've had a general increase in enrollment, we also have had increases in special education students, and so those are caseload driven. So when they meet a certain threshold, we have to add another staff member.
Is that
So,
what pupil services is?
yes, right, it's not just enrollment, it would be,
Right, it's, that category covers, like I said, counselors, speech, social workers, teacher consultants, that all goes into that category. So all of those things are basically driven by, IEPs and, 504 plans, I believe.
I mean, 10% is kind of a significant jump. We haven't had 10% jump in.
no, but we also last year had many positions that were never filled. We were not able to find staff.
Okay.
So you would see at the end of the year what looks like a jump because we have been able to locate staff this year. We've been able to recruit them. And so I think our special education director was excited to have her staffing pretty much all filled this year compared to last year.
Okay, good. The next question I have is the changes in food service fund revenue. Why such a large decrease in state sources? Almost 200,000 down in state sources.
The state sources there, I'm trying to remember, it was a grant. Take a quick look. We had some grant funding that I'm not considering to be renewed at this point until I know, if we are going to actually get that funding again next year. Like there's 10-cent a meal and local food revenue that we're getting from the state of Michigan. So I know for sure that that's included in this current year. There had to be about at least four different programs that we got some funding from the state of Michigan. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not positive on which ones we're going to get for next year yet at this point.
Okay. How and when will we know? I mean, again, that's from 240,000 to 45,000. That's a
Yeah.
80% drop.
Well, it's quite a bit. 240, it's about we have about 1/6 remaining. Is that what you mean? Like the
Well, I mean, it's
percentage
going
drop?
from 240 to 45. That's
Right.
almost a $200,000
Well,
drop in state funding.
There were several grants that we got. This year, every time we turned around, they were giving us another grant for this year for food service. And they have a lot of specifics attached to it, like you can only buy local food, Michigan food, and I'm not even certain which of those are going to continue into next year.
Okay. And then I have a question in the changes in community service fund expenditures. I see the community service fund revenue, which just has state, local, and federal sources. But then that includes our tuition based, and where's that considered in the revenue?
The tuition base is up under local.
Oh, all the tuition goes into local.
Yes. State sources is when the students qualify for funding from DHS, that funding goes there on that state line. They don't have any federal sources at this time. So it's just those two things, is the local money that they raise with their own tuition.
What else would represent a local source other than tuition or payments?
It's all, like the enrichment money for the adult enrichment class when the people pay for their classes and the parents pay for their kids' latchkey, preschool. That's basically it.
So we're calling it a local source, but it's basically fees charged. Okay,
Yes.
all right. And then I guess I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Rick's question about the activity accounts. Is that anything is that PTO accounts or this is just class fund accounts?
Well, they were all in the same fund together, the PTOs with the athletic accounts, with all of those class.
Boosters, everything, right?
All of them were in the former student activities accounts. They're now special revenue.
So what's their process? What paperwork do they have to fill out to? be
They
their
have to
own?
go to the IRS and become a corporation and get an EIN number. They have to open a bank, showing me that that EIN number is attached to the bank account, and they have to have two signers to come forward and say, these are going to be the signers on this account so that we feel comfortable. There's a couple of people, and the bank would require two anyway.
Okay.
For that
So like
type of account.
so the legacy accounts, I don't have a big concern over. I mean, if it was the class of 1970 and you have their money, turn it over to them and they have the right paperwork and be done. Ongoing things, I think we need to monitor. I think we need to make sure that these ongoing have actually followed through with their 501c3
Right.
work. Because I know they say they do, but I don't think they all do. Because I've looked for some and I haven't been able to find them. And they're corporations just like any other. They should appear on the
Right.
state website. But either they started the paperwork and we turned the money over and away they went, they never finished it, and if they're still raising money in our entity, I guess, I still want to know that they're right. So we should probably be keeping an eye on, or have some sort of process for.
Right. Well, they're not required to get 501c3 status to move off to be a corporation, but they do have to file an annual report anyway. And the IRS says that right in the letter when they apply for that EIN number, and it'll tell them that they have an annual duty to file a report. Somebody's got to file. They don't have to be a 501c3. That's a much lengthier process. Could take 6 months.
But then they would have to pay taxes on what they have, and most of them don't want to do that. That was the whole reason. I know several of them at a point had done that, but I've tried to find them and I can't. So we need to have some kind of a process to not just make sure we turn it over, but if they're still raising money under our umbrella, then we need to know. Like, I don't care about the classes
Right.
that are gone.
Right.
Those
Well,
are
and that's, like I said, I don't even know if I had one account that wasn't a class of this year.
Okay.
My concern was to get them off and get their money because they were going to lose it
Right.
if they didn't come and claim it. So,
Makes sense.
but no, I understand. I guess, how would we know is what I guess I'm kind of wondering if they,
Well, if they're continuing to raise money under our umbrella, then they should be continually letting us know their status. They should provide us their documentation that we can look up on the state's website. You can see that it's valid. You can see that it's in good standing. Business entity search through the state of Michigan will pop all
Right.
that up.
That's something that we can be added to our fundraising paperwork and approval processes, if it's not there.
Just based on where it's going.
okay.
Any other questions? Technical?
I just wanted to add on to his, so with the food service, state sources, you said that you're not sure if we're gonna get those grants again, okay, so is there a set time of the year that they do come in? Does it miss the
No.
budget?
It's really kind of, I'm just chuckling about that a little bit because the state right now, we just get funding like in May and all of a sudden they want it used by September. So we're like, we don't know. They don't come at any particular time. Some of them come earlier, but then all of a sudden they surprise us and send us, oh, here you go, but you got to use it up,
Okay.
But so this has been, for the last couple of years, how they've been operating. And I think they're just trying to get their money spent down as well.
Okay, and so when that does come in, you just build it back into the budget?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's reflected in an amendment.
okay. And I thought we had this discussion before about separate accounts. That's why I want to be definitely clear about the class accounts, about whether they're supposed to be regular business accounts or 501c3, because when the students or or whoever is getting it have to know that if it's not active in 4 years, they have to pay a fine if they want to renew it, but that's just, I would like to know if they're a nonprofit or, like he was saying, something. So that side of it, not just at the budget meeting, these are the class, so, because that kind of brought some questions to mind.
I send a document that our lawyer at the time anyway, she provided us with a document to help groups go off. And they're like booster clubs, PTOs, any of those type of organizations, how they set up their own account and what steps they need to take. So I've sent that to each person that I've spoke to. I sent it to the administrative assistant over at the high school for her to give when she's contacting people. So they can read through that and see what's involved. There's links in there that tell them where to go. I've had many call me. Many have called the admin assistant, and then she'll forward them to me if she can't answer the question. So we're trying to help them out, but I'm not a tax accountant. And so I tell them that, and I say, you need to consult with somebody, read through this document, follow the steps to be able to secure your money from the district. And then you might want to consult with an accountant, so that you can determine what's the best route. Should you be a 501c3 to protect those dollars? As far as qualification, I don't even know. I think most of them aren't planning to fundraise. They're planning to just use it for those groups are planning to use it for reunions is all I think they're doing.
Okay,
So
okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the same discussion just is popping more questions. So who's the custodian for those outside accounts?
You mean
Activity accounts that we're talking about that are no longer under our umbrella?
we are
Until we turn them
the
over.
district?
Right, once we've turned them over.
Oh, that depends. It has to be one of the four or two of the officers of record. And so like the admin assistant has a listing of who the advisor was and who all of the officers were. So she contacts them and says two of those people have to be named on the account. So those class officers are going to be the ones responsible when they take care of the account, opening it.
It's the admin assistant in the high school,
Yes,
so we still have a hand in this once it's an outside activity?
we do. And that's why we want to get the money off our books, because they consider it special revenue money until we can get it.
Just until we turn it over though, right?
Exactly.
Once we turn it over, we're done with it.
Yeah.
Right. And they, they do advise that there's different opinions. Some are, get all of that money that's in the student activities account off, let them all take care of their money. And then there's other trains of thought, it just goes back and forth. But I know that once we pass a certain deadline and there's inactivity in the account, you have to send that money up to the state. So, and it's very difficult to get it out. If you're a club, you're not going to know how it was submitted over. There's key information they will ask, and I can tell you they won't know. So we need them to pull their money out so they can have it. And some are quite large. Some are small. We had $100 one, and we've had like a $7,000 one. So I think that was probably in the class of 20 when they couldn't do anything with their money, because of COVID. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
There's a 4-year deadline, so we're not going back more than 4 years.
There's like with the sheets, you're supposed to turn money over within, I think it's 2 years because of the way that it runs. It's through March 31st of the year before. And we didn't do that because we knew, they weren't going to get their money back. So we're scurrying, trying to get them to take their money.
So
At
how
this
far
point.
back? are we going?
It would be about a year and a half. So like we just filed our sheets report that went through March of 22, I'm sorry. So it has, I don't know how they picked the date, but for our books, it works out being like a year and a half. And so what we have to do due diligence, we have to contact them all, let them know we have this money, did you cash this check? Did you never get this check? And they respond within 60 days, and whoever did not respond, it gets sent up to the state. All the backup.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 3 minutes. Is there anybody here who would like to speak tonight? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. Brings us to the consent agenda. This consists of, is there anybody who'd like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing nothing removed, we'll go ahead and read that. That's minutes from the June 11th, 2024 regular meeting, HR update, expulsion of student 7930, approval of the fiscal year 24 final amendment, approval of the 2024 tax rate request form L-4029, approval of the fiscal year 25 original budget, approval of the Wayne County Enhancement Millage Resolution, approval of the 2024-2025 milk and bread bid, and approval of the 2024-2025 renewal of Sammy's Pizza bid. I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Lamas. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And action item number 1 is approval of the Davidson Middle School 2025 Washington DC trip.
Hey everyone. I'm here tonight to seek your approval of the Washington DC trip for our 8th graders in May 2025. This trip will take place the 19th through the 22nd. It will be led through Student Adventures Tours. Of course, students will see the landmarks and the sites, but they also will get to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which is really cool. And then this trip will be funded through student fundraising efforts.
Any questions? Dr. Pomponio.
I didn't see Ms. Shuck on there. Is she not doing that this year? Or
No, we have 2 new sponsors.
Okay.
And
They are here.
here?
with
Oh,
us. We
okay.
have Kenneth Tangway and Grace Hinojosa,
Oh,
who
okay.
are leading the trip starting next year.
Good. Nice.
Thank you.
One other question. So we don't have the super protection policy for that trip, but is there another warranty or something that protects them if something happens with the weather, not the weather, but like cancellation for whatever reason?
Well, I'm glad they're here because I will lean into them to know if there's any sort of.
They let the parents decide that on themselves, so it's not.
Okay. Okay, that's right, because my daughter went and they had a separate option. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing
Thank
none, I'll
you.
bring the discussion back to the table and entertain a motion on action item number 1.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Davidson Middle School 2025 Washington DC trip as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Sage. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, motion passes. Action item number 2, approval of the Davidson Middle School Co-op Swim Program with Creative Montessori Academy.
We're inviting our Davidson Middle School Athletic Director and AP, Jonathan Victor.
Good evening, members of the board and those in attendance. I am here this evening requesting board approval for Davidson Middle School to run a cooperative swimming and diving team with Creative Montessori Academy for the 2024-25 season. This cooperative agreement would allow male and female students in grades 6 through 8 at Creative Montessori Academy to join the Davidson swimming and diving team. This will help ensure our swimming and diving team numbers stay consistent and strong as we continue to grow our program. The cooperative agreement application for signature is included.
Any questions for staff? Does this mean we got to put a pool in over at Davidson?
No, nope, we're busting them.
Use the same pool?
We're busting them.
All right, we'll use the same pool. Okay. All right, I'll bring the discussion back to the table, entertain a motion on action item number 2.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Davidson Middle School Co-op Swim Program with Creative Montessori Academy as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Long, or is that Mr. Sage? Can't tell you guys apart today. All right, I had a motion and support. Call for vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Item number 3, approval of the Allen Playground.
Good evening, Jason Hardy. The playground at Allen, we're talking about the upper elementary, the age 5 to 12 playground, is in need of being updated, and to make sure we're able to meet the needs of all of our students, we've received the following 3 quotes. First quote was from Great Lakes Recreation for $215,378, Mid-States Rec for $175,169, and Snyder Rec for $146,080. I've included the warranties for Great Lakes Recreation Company. There's a full page of warranties. I highlighted a few within the equipment that they priced out for us. A limited 15-year warranty on steel, limited 10 on fabric shade, limited 8 on fiberglass signage, and limited 5-year warranty covering multiple items, and it's all attached here. Because the additional amount of ground level components or varieties of equipment that Great Lakes Recreation has provided us within the quote, it is our recommendation to purchase Allen's new playground equipment coming from Great Lakes Recreation Company. We request the board approve the purchase in the amount of $246,378 with contingency of $31,000 for a total of $246,378. In the proposal, we listed the components or the pieces of equipment. We've also included warranty and some pictures for you to take a look at.
I would like to also jump in and provide some explanation on these ground components. So we are working on improving the ADA accessibility and the number of ground level play components in all of our playgrounds. Right now, we are working on some proposals that will come before the board to add to each of our playground areas so that we have more wheelchair accessible play components for kids on our playgrounds. So Allen's in particular included and incorporated these ground components already in their proposal. When we went back to both of the other companies and asked them to add components in, they refused to do it. So through the interview process alone, we weeded out those that didn't want to continue to enhance their quote, and so we were left with just Great Lakes as our option, combining both of those objectives, both to replace the Allen Playground and then also to make sure that that new playground represents the level of support that we will be providing all of our classrooms, or excuse me, all of our playgrounds. The color scheme is a little difficult to see because there's a lot of yellow in this particular print, but these are all the burgundy, black and gray and white. So there's still a little bit of color work that we're going to do with Great Lakes so that we don't have a slide that's 2 different colors. That's bothering me a lot. But we'll fix that. But we'll make sure that that color scheme represents the Titan colors, and it's all part of our Titan campus, and it'll look that part. So there are some components that will stay on that the PTO of Allen did purchase, which includes a rock climbing wall that will be retained as part of the playground. So those are not going away.
Questions for staff? Mr. Sage?
Just 2 easy ones, but one, have we used this company in the past?
Yep, they put the new one in North Point.
Oh, did they? Okay, perfect. And then the second question is kind of off topic, but do we have surveillance on this area? Like, do we have a camera? Okay.
We should. Our cameras are facing the playgrounds now.
Yes, there is exterior cameras on this area. We got some newer cameras, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of IT because I don't know all that, but we got the 360 view cameras that show a lot more, the exterior of our buildings. So a 360, 180, 270, whatever it can capture. So we got some better cameras, I believe it was last year, and we got a lot more views of the outside than we did in years past.
They're also on an auditing schedule for their cameras, where we intermittently check to see that they're working even though we haven't used them in a while, so that we don't find out that they're not working and stopped working when we need them.
Yes.
So they are on that.
Thank you. Dr. Pomponio.
Did you say ground component, which means the bottom part? I was wondering
Well,
about
it
that.
just means, for instance, when you see this design, you'll see like a lemonade stand. You'll see play activities that are at the ground level so that a child who may be in a wheelchair can still use pieces of the playground.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know there's some like rubber padding. What kind of component's going to be on the bottom, on the ground? Is it going to be the mulch or is it going to be the padding?
Currently, we have the mulch in all the playgrounds. Now that EWF, right?
Engineered wood fiber.
Yeah, EWF mulch does meet accessibility. I know that it's sometimes harder to push a wheelchair through that mulch, but it does meet for the playgrounds.
So ADA, would we have to have a path or just a ramp?
Well, sidewalks, we're looking at ramps to on and off playground, path through where we haven't mapped that out quite yet on what's it going to take from A to B to C to D,
Okay.
and it depends on the different disabilities.
Okay.
Even now, like with all new playgrounds, there's a ratio to platform components to ground level components, and where Great Lakes Rec actually exceeded that recommendation.
Good, that's good. The other thing is, I know that Allen has a side playground. Is that also going to be replaced?
That's coming in a different proposal for the board at a later time. So we are working on all of our lower L playgrounds right now, or our early L playgrounds, because not only do we want to add components, we need to make sure that they're accessible, but we also want to add some play stations. So we, the first round, we did a very limited playground installation based on what RISA gave us for GSRP. We now need to go back in and enhance those a bit. So that's going to come forward as an addition to those playgrounds.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll bring the discussion back to the table, entertain a motion on action item number 3.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Allen Playground purchase as presented.
Okay, I have motion by Dr. Pomponio, is there support? Support by Ms. Angel. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Item number 4, approval of the Anderson baseball and tennis parking lot.
Good evening. Gary Kent, Plant Moran Rail Point, and Jason Hardy again, the district. Here to present the award recommendation for the Anderson High School Civil and Paving Services Contractor Award for ASI Paving. This project is essentially a parking lot addition off of the southwest corner of the campus that'll tie together the baseball and the tennis court, or the tennis court area. And there'll be an expansion drive off of the staff parking lot and the current nature center that'll loop along the west side of the building. The parking lot will consist of roughly 60 plus parking spaces, again, the expansion drive, and then a detention pond off of the west side of the parking lot. The RFP process for this, on May 21st, we put out a formal RFP. Construction documents were posted to the state required website as well as a local newspaper. And on June 11th, sealed proposals were received from 5 different contractors to perform the work. The low contractor had to withdraw their bid. They had an incomplete bid. So at the end of the day, we had 4 contractors that had complete proposals. Of those 4, ASI Paving had the lowest proposal amount. That included all the requirements of the RFP. Their proposal amount was for $584,500, and we're recommending a project contingency amount of $58,540, which again will be returned to the district if it's unused, and the total project amount for this engagement of $642,950. On the following page, you'll see a breakdown. The two of the proposals were cut off. On the left, you'll see actually T&M Asphalt. That was the apparent low. Again, they had to withdraw their bid because it was incomplete. They were missing a large scope of the project. And then the following pages, you'll see the proposal from ASI Paving Specialists. And on C1, you'll see their bid breakdown for the project. We did get unit pricing for additional pavement reconstruction. If when we expand from the existing staff parking lot, if when they make that cut, if for some reason they need to expand a little bit into that existing parking lot, we can do a mill and recap of it, which is not a full replacement, but it's a lot cheaper option that'll still give you a long lifespan of that parking lot. And then we also did include a unit rate for full removal and replacement of parking lot for a total of $5 per square foot from ASI. The total projects they're anticipating it'll start in July once they get approved submittals to PEA, which was the civil engineer for the project. They'll send over their submittals to them for review. Once they're approved, they'll get materials ordered, and they're anticipating it'll be completed by October of this year, if they can start in July. So pretty quick turnaround for the size of this project. Jason, did I forget anything?
I think you covered it, unless there's questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Sorry. So the parking lot that comes from the teacher's parking lot that goes into, it's coming up the walkway to the new parking lot?
Correct.
So is that right up against the nature center line or is it, okay. Okay,
Yes.
I just wondered how-
There'll be new grading to make sure that it's not too, sharp of a slope into that nature center. They'll build it up a little bit, so it's a nice even drive going along that west side of the campus.
So the existing walkway currently will be replaced by the driveway. It'll be shared. It'll get wider so that cars can pass each other. It'll come towards the building and not towards the nature center because of the wetlands. And so as it gets
Right.
wider, it'll come towards the building. We got room there towards the building and not towards the nature center
Okay,
for the expansion of the drive.
yeah, that's what I was, wanting to know what that looked like. Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Is there a drawing of this?
The drawing?
Yeah.
Yes, we can send that to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Just,
I think that we'd like to have one of those sketches probably added to our packet when we post it online.
Okay.
We do have it, though it has been sent to the board in several, probably months ago. But it just kind of as a visual, you're going to see that path come down the tennis courts, and then it's going to actually be lengthwise, long ways to the facing the baseball side, as opposed to long way facing the tennis side. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy one that way. They're still going to leave enough space for about a half field for practice. So they'll still be able to do some practice activities, whether you're playing soccer or you're playing football there, and part of it. So that doesn't take up the entire space. But we'll make sure that that gets added to this packet when the agenda goes back online.
so that'll be on the left side of the field per se, correct?
Yep, right on the third baseline, just left of that.
Is there anything we're doing from foul balls coming over to the parking lot?
Yeah, that's part of the renovation of the diamonds.
Right.
Just like we're doing that on the softball side,
Okay,
that's putting the
that's-
big netting. We
it'll be on
have
the
nettings that are
side
going
too.
up on the third baseline as well, I believe. We can check on
We'll
that.
double check that. I believe you're correct.
I think that
'Cause I know
came
we
up-
talked
yeah,
about
that came
softball. I
up-
didn't know if we talked about
Yeah,
the
that came
baseball.
up when we were talking about the baseball fields.
For the baseball
last time.
too.
The only thing I'm wondering is whether or not the distance between the parking lot and the third baseline was large enough that they didn't need it. I think there may have been a discussion point on
I
that.
believe that the netting doesn't exist on baseball because when we took it off from third base to parking lot, the parking lot's going to be closer to the tennis courts than closer to the field itself. if that makes sense. So we felt, and plus you got to go more uphill because remember that's a raised
Yeah.
area and you dip down to the baseball, so you got to go uphill. So I do not believe that the net
We'll
is.
check. Let's go back and take a look at that design to make sure that
Because of
that's what
distance.
their opinion is.
The nice thing is that area, if it does need to be added, there's nothing existing, you know, like the softball, for example, had the existing dugouts that had to be worked around. This area is pretty wide open if netting did need to be added to it for any reason. So, but we'll double check that.
Along with this too, is there's some sidewalks and with the raised field, there's going to be some steps so you can get down from A to B to the lower sidewalk that leads to baseball. So it's all integrating access, ADA accessibility to baseball, to tennis, all with parking lot and blending a transition because of the slope. So there's going to be a ramp and even some steps so you can get down to the lower grade and go to the pool or the baseball field from the upper.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Seeing none, I'll bring the discussion back to the table, entertain a motion on action item number 4.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Anderson baseball and tennis parking lot as presented.
I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Lamas. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Action item number 5 is approval of the excavation for the Ford Line Housing Project. We don't have to approve every step of this, do we?
Yes. Only if it hits the
That
threshold.
is my understanding that yes.
We could just see this as a package or something on the whole house.
We have just been approved by Wayne County for our site condominium plan. So they have approved our building of these houses. And the first step in building the house right now is excavating. So I am bringing a proposal to excavate. We had 3 quotes. The best one is from Pro Excavation, $13,800 for the excavation, plus the cost of any clay and dirt that needs to be hauled off site, which would come out to be about $10 a yard, a cubic yard. The plan is to build 8 houses. This is step 1 for house number 1.
Any questions for staff?
Just if you can answer, how are the students going to participate in this step, in this part?
In this step, this would be an observational situation. The plan would be for this excavation to take place in mid-August, and to have students and invite students to come out to observe that process to get a full understanding of what goes into the pre-steps of constructing a house and setting it up for what they're going to be taking part in, their hands-on part.
Are we getting excitement from them about participating in this?
Yes.
And is there some way we could document it? Maybe not necessarily with a full-blown video camera, but somehow so that we've got some images of this occurring. We can use it from a marketing standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will be there when the kids are there, so I will bring the good camera.
Thank you.
This is some of the more boring parts of building a house where they run a sewer line, tap the sewer, they run the water line, pull it up in the yard, tie it to a blue 2x4 and wait for the water department to connect it and dig 3 feet bigger than the house all the way around. So that's it. Yeah.
There are only certain steps that are going to keep coming back to the board because at some point it's going to become a matter of materials, in the construction. But these are the major kind of contracted out pieces.
Okay. All right, any questions for staff?
So is there ongoing communication with the neighboring residents about the project and
So,
their properties and not making messes or storing equipment or anything in their?
right. So there is communication that goes out. Hennessy Engineering, for when we did our sewer line, put out communication to all the residents that what was happening. We have signs that are going to be going out this week. This is future placement of Southgate Ford Line housing project. So there will be communication that goes out, and we'll follow the requirements for that.
We may consider having a website page where we can document, what our steps are, like timeline wise, so that if anyone's interested, they can go on and take a look at that. We did that when we were working with the Heinzen building and getting that mess cleaned up. We were able to share, those testing outcomes when we did test the air during that time period. So we might be able to do something similar to the construction project and have a special site that has pictures on that site as well as what that week holds in terms of projects or activity. Really helpful.
I'm sure we discussed it before, but which of the 8 are we starting with?
Which spot are we starting with? We're starting the northwest corner.
Okay,
That's nice.
so that's
By Ford Lane.
Ford
On
line.
Ford Line, yes.
Ford line, and then the furthest
And
away
then
from
Helen, then Ford Line.
from the school.
Yep. And
Okay.
build towards the school.
Oh, I'm sorry, will we have signage?
Yes, the construction trades built 2 large signs that says this is the future home of construction trade homes, and kind of shows the design of the house and what the work is happening.
In collaboration with our graphic arts program, graphic arts made the print of what it is, put it on the sign that the construction trades built. The top of those signs are shingled to protect that, and it's the same shingles that are plotted to be used on the actual houses. So
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there neighborhood support for the project? Do we know?
what's that?
Does the neighborhood support the project? Do we know? Are they supportive of it, the residents that live there? Do we know?
I have not heard
I mean, we
complaints
have
about
heard,
it.
well, we have heard concerns from some that have not been happy with that, that may have had property that was abutting Ford lines, and that did get impacted by the laying of the sewer pipe and some of that.
Yeah, there was a resident who was frustrated with that. That was right away. So it was the city's property that was touched, but that has been reseeded. All grass has been restored. Tree has been replanted. So we did our best to make that resident whole again.
And by that, I'm meaning Hennessy and the construction company that was dealing with that.
Right.
Not necessarily us. So now this is a first
Yeah.
time we're going to actually be doing anything that the school district is directly responsible for, how it turns out. So if we do have issues that we think the community might need to consider, or if we have any responsibilities, we can add that to that website, an opportunity for them to submit some feedback. But I would say we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community in general, maybe not necessarily Ford Line area residents as much as people who are very, very interested already in purchasing homes that are being made by our students.
I mean, I'm happy to listen to anybody's concerns or complaints, but construction's messy. And somebody made a mess when they built their house, and somebody maybe didn't like it, but
Yeah.
it's also temporary. All construction's temporary, so I'm happy to listen to any valid concerns, but if it's about whose property is, people, and not being specific here, people have a tendency to use things that are vacant, and then they say it's theirs. And that's not, I don't know that that's happened here, but that I have seen that happen where people take over stuff that's vacant. They go, oh, that's mine. No, it's not. It's somebody else's. So I'll be happy to listen to any valid concerns and do what we can to be good neighbors.
Yeah, I just want to ensure that we're being respectful of the neighboring properties.
Sure.
And I want to make this a better city, and I want to make it a nicer looking city, and I want to add to that. But I also want to be respectful of anyone's property. People's homes are their biggest purchase of their life, and I don't want to interfere with their ability to live in that home happily.
No, but we should understand at some point, contractors are going to park on that street to work on that house. Students are going to park on that street to work on that house. And it's a public street and everybody's allowed to park on it. Again, people think they own things that they don't own. I don't own this, they're parking in front of my house. Yeah, it's a public street. So I'd be happy to listen to any valid problems and try and deal with them. Of course, be respectful. So, okay. Any other questions for staff?
I have an idea or two after the meeting, if you've got 2 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Item number 6, approval of the Davidson new servicing line. You waited through all that for this, right?
The best for the last. What I'm proposing is a new serving line at Davidson Middle School. I look back in 2020, right before COVID, we were serving at Davidson 330 lunches. And they only had they had 3 lunch periods. So now there's 2 lunch periods, and we still have the 2 serving lines, and we're serving 100 more kids. So those lines are pretty long. So I'm proposing a new serving line. It would be positioned right outside the windows. It would be in the cafeteria, and it would be like a self-service, like we'll have a sandwich slide, and we'll have a what I call offerings bar, and then a merchandiser for milk and juice, and then a cashier. So that would be out there all the time, except for the register. We would push in the closed doors, after service. But this would give kids an opportunity to, I really think that participation will increase when you have lines that are shorter, not as long to get lunch. I mean, right now we're doing 430 lunches, and then this is not including a la carte sales as well they're waiting in line too. I'm just looking at lunches. But I can see lunches going up to 500 once we make this change and students are not waiting as long.
Is there, I think you just said it, but is there a separate line for a la carte so they can get by quicker?
No, it's part of the 2 lines.
Separate line? Because, there's only a short window of time for the students to eat.
Right.
And
Well, having the 3rd line would definitely help that. But to have an a la carte, it doesn't justify having a line just for a la carte.
Okay.
Yeah. But we would be adding a cashier position because we're having a new line.
Okay.
But the sales that are generated, and you had asked about the free meals, we're going to be serving free meals for quite some time. And so I just think having this new line, we're going to have a lot more kids eating.
So I'm trying to remember, there's 2 lines on the sides. What's in the middle? Is that where you're going to have your 3rd line?
Right now, there's just 2 serving lines. It's like within the serving area.
2 open doors.
Yeah, so this would be going outside into the cafeteria. And also, we have an excess fund balance from last school year that we are required to have a spend down plan, and this is actually a spend down plan. So we're sort of required to spend our money, and this is a good way to reinvest in our program.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on action item number 6.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the Davidson serving line as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Support by Ms. Angel. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I am going to jump back because Dr. Pomponio pointed out I did miss we voted on that without the previous one on action item 5. We voted on that without a motion or a support. We just voted. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on action item number 5, the approval of the excavation.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the excavation for Ford Line Housing Project as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Support. Support by Mr. Sage. We'll do this again. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Now I think we got a clean sheet. Yeah. All right, now last one is entertain a motion on the adjournment.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Support. Support by Mr. Stage. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you. Hey, real quick, I'm gonna send out an email to everybody about our retreat that's coming up in July. Any items you wanna